Welcome to Psychology Today. I'm your co-host, Ann Morrow, and this is a show about bicycling in general and specifically about bicycle safety. Thank you for joining us. You may remember Shel Summerall from our November Psychology Today show. She was a guest, and we've invited her to join us as a host on the show, so we're excited to have her on the air tonight, and she's going to bring a new perspective to Psychology Today. So we're off and running, and we'll see her in a moment. And welcome, Shel.
Thank you.
And a big thank you to our crew behind the scenes who makes this show happen. We here in the front of the camera are called the talent, and I'm sure that you can appreciate that, in fact, the people behind the scenes are the talent, and we appreciate their efforts. And thank you to our producer, Bruce Buffington, and Northwest Bicycle Safety for producing Psychology Today. Northwest Bicycle Safety Council is already hard at work scheduling the calendar for 2016, our community bike fair calendar, and getting ready for a new year of hard work. So we invite you to check out our website and see how you might be able to help, or what all we do, and get more information about our organization. Well, let's get started. Our guest is Mychal Tetteh from the Community Cycling Center, and many cyclists do good things in the community, and I think we've seen that throughout this year's Psychology Today shows. There's many good people in our community, but certainly Mychal is certainly a rock star in that regard, and we're happy to have him on the show. And so he is with the Community Cycling Center, and he's going to share some anecdotal tales about individuals benefiting from Community Cycling Center. And our new co-host, Shel, is going to take the lead on this. So, Shel?
Yes. Well, welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and just wanted to give a big thanks to everyone that helps put this show on. Now, Mychal, thank you so much for joining us, just to echo what Ann was saying, and it's really exciting to have you here from the center. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got involved in the cycling industry?
Yeah, certainly, and thanks for having us on. I got engaged at the Community Cycling Center in 2005 when I was looking for an opportunity to have a job in the bicycle industry. And I went knocking on doors and showed up at a lot of local bike shops around town and couldn't get in the time of day, much less an interview, because I didn't have the skills and I didn't have the experience. But at the Community Cycling Center, I got an interview, and I got started doing retail sales and outreach. It was about $6.50 an hour, and it meant that I was barely qualified to sell inner tubes. But from there, I was able to continue to develop some of the skills that I needed in order to be a more well-rounded bicycle professional. And since then, have had a lot of fun working at the Community Cycling Center.
That's really good to hear. I'm glad that you got the chance to be really involved in that community. Now, what exactly does the Community Cycling Center do? I know you guys have a lot of different outreach programs. Can you give us a brief overview of that?
Yeah, absolutely. The mission of the Community Cycling Center is to broaden access to bicycling and its benefits, and we essentially try to help people get connected to bicycling and the bicycling community however it is that they need to. We do that work every single day in our bike shop. We also deliver programs for youth and adults all throughout the Portland metropolitan region, and we're working every single day to help everyone enjoy the freedom that comes from getting engaged in cycling in a way that's going to be safe and appropriate for themselves.
That's really exciting. Now, what are some of the major projects that you've taken on since you became CEO in 2013? Right about the time that you had your first interview here.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's been a busy couple of years, that's for sure. Because the need is so great. And as you all know, there's a real need out there for us to ensure that people can be safe, that people can have access, and that's really where the Cycling Center comes in and complements a lot of the other work that's happening in our region around cycling. And it's multifaceted, and I know we'll get an opportunity to talk some more about those things later, but the big lift in the very near term has been really to grow and sustain the base of volunteers that we have at the organization. And it starts with some of the volunteers that have the biggest impact for the organization, and that's our board of directors. directors. So I've been working real closely with our board. We're growing the board in terms of the size. We've increased the amount of diversity on our board, and we've begun to really have more capacity to deliver on the needs of the organization at the board level. But volunteers that show up on Tuesday nights to help us build bikes, help us deliver the holiday bike drive, they have a tremendous impact on the organization.
Well, it definitely sounds like you've had a busy 2 years. Have you had any time to ride your bike in that time?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I was riding my bike today out there in the rain.
Wow.
And we were talking about the ways in which the number of bicyclists you see when it's raining about an inch an hour out there is significantly reduced. But there's something really magical about riding your bike in the rain, because our office and our bike shop are separated by about 1.5 miles. I have the occasion to ride a little bit in the middle of the day, which is nice, not very much traffic. And on a day like today, that was a real treat.
It's really exciting to hear. I'm really glad to hear that you've been able to bike and stay active too.
Certainly.
Now, right now it's December, and you guys have your bike holiday drive going on. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about that? Who are the participants in it? Who benefits from this program?
Yeah.
Go into
The
a
holiday
little
bike,
detail.
Holiday Bike Drive is in its 20th year.
Wow.
Cycling Center itself celebrated its 20th anniversary last year. But in the last 20 years, we've given away over 10,000 bicycles to children who would otherwise not be able to receive a bicycle for the holidays. And on Sunday, December 6th, this past Sunday, we gave away over 300 bicycles to children from families with a great need throughout our region. And it's a wonderful event. It takes obviously hundreds of bicycles to be donated to the organization. Thousands of hours worth of volunteer time go into producing, cleaning, repairing, and then deploying those bicycles. And the deployment itself, the event, is this magical opportunity to see not just one child receive their first bike and that smile, but hundreds of children receive their first bicycle. And it takes over 270 volunteers the day of to make it happen. And it's an all-staff lift for us organizationally.
So it's fair to say that this year's event went really well then? You had
Absolutely.
a good turnout of people. You had amazing volunteers, it sounds like. Were there any magical moments that you have to share from that event?
You know, there was one young person. She was waiting in line, and she was going to be one of the first. And she knew, it seemed, she knew even better than her family what the process was going to be, where it was that she needed to be in line, and just the eagerness of that child. And then there's this other magical thing that happens. And for kids that are living in families that have low incomes, choice is often not a privilege that is afforded. And for children to be able to have a sea of bicycles to choose from, to look at one and kind of browse and then decide that's not the one for them, and then to come back to another one, I think is one of the really great kind of overwhelming goods of having an event that has that kind of legacy, and frankly all of the amazing planning that staff and volunteers have done over the years to make it amazing.
It really sounds like it's such an exciting event. What can people do to help you reach your goals for next year's holiday bike drive?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the goals for next year, because when we were at the holiday bike drive in 2014, Congressman Earl Blumenauer pulled me aside and he said, "Michael, this is great. I know we're giving away over 300 bicycles today, but what would it take for us to give away 1,000? And that's essentially been on my shoulder ever since. I've been wondering, okay, well, how are we going to do it? Well, first of all, we got to set it as a goal, and we've done that. We've issued that challenge out there to the community. And the nice thing about the Cycling Center's model around Holiday Bike Drive and what we bring to the table is that we're going to end up bringing 350 bicycles because we know that's what we're going to be able to produce based on what people donate to us and the fact that our volunteers are working on them all year long. But we're going to need to find 650 more bicycles. We're going to need to find that time. And we're going to need to find a couple of different events in order to make sure that we can distribute those bicycles in a way that isn't like what you see in other parts of the country where people give bikes away. they're just throwing the bikes out the back of a truck, or they're just giving people boxes and they have to figure out how to assemble the bicycles, right? We really do a great job of focusing on ensuring that there is a programmatic element before the kids even get an opportunity to be fitted for a helmet. Safety is a big part of what we do with the Holiday Bike Drive, because we have the responsibility of helping to grow the next generation of cyclists in our region, and we take that real seriously.
It's really exciting. So it's fair to say that you will gladly accept donations of bicycles from
Absolutely.
the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there other ways that people can donate? Can they decide to be a volunteer with you guys? Do you accept volunteers that can help both mechanically and non-mechanically for those
Absolutely.
people?
You know, one of the things that we do is we take new bikes out of boxes down at the Hotel Monaco. They do a wine hour here in December, and I'm working with people that just happened to show up. I was working last week with a couple from Birmingham, and didn't really have very much mechanical expertise, and over the course of an hour we had built up one more bicycle. Wow. So it doesn't take very much mechanical expertise, and it'd actually be a really easy way for people to learn some of the basic skills that they need in order to work on their own bicycles and understand how to use the tools that they need to work on those bicycles. So to your question, and I want to make sure I get to it, people can donate time at the Cycling Center. Volunteer orientation is the first Tuesday of every month at the Cycling Center Bike Shop. You can find more information on our website. People can certainly donate money to the organization. That helps us tremendously meet the needs of families that are living with low incomes. And they can also donate bicycles. Really anything bicycle related, but gently used bicycles are best. We'll either use them for our programs or recycle whatever it is that we're not able to use responsibly, or we'll end up turning them around and putting them back into use through our retail store.
Wow, that's really exciting to hear. It makes me want to come out and join your team over there.
We'd love to have you out.
So now that we have kind of gone over what your holiday bike drive is, are there any other major things that go on during the month of December in these winter months when it's cold and rainy for people to do or take place and volunteer with?
You know, the big one is the Holiday Bike Drive, but we're busy all the time, especially this time of year. So we're always doing different kinds of events. Next week, we're actually going to be co-hosting a podcast with Bike Portland, their podcast. They're going to be exploring the intersections of transportation and technology. And there'll be a little bit of volunteer support that's needed there. But the best way people can give during the holidays is really to make an impact by looking on our website, seeing ways, as you mentioned, Shell, that they can give and support the organization.
Well, that's really great. I'm really excited to hear more about this. I think what we're going to do is go to a short safety video,
Great.
Take a quick break, and then come back and talk some more with Ann. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right.
Skull, dome, melon, nut. No matter what you call your head, I think we can all agree it's worth protecting, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing something cool like riding a bike, you'll find that hazards are everywhere. From car doors to gravel on the street, to dogs crossing your path. Yeah, even the cute ones. Crashes can happen, even to those with awesome biking skills. In a fight between your head and the pavement always wins. So it makes sense to protect your skull and the valuable gray matter inside by wearing a certified helmet. Think you look like a dork? No way. There are plenty of cool-looking helmets out there, with tons of styles and colors to choose from. There's downhill and BMX helmets, mountain bike helmets, road helmets, and racing helmets. Whatever style you choose, just make sure it's for the kind of riding you're doing, and that it's safety certified. Visit any good bike shop or sporting goods store if you're unsure what kind of helmet you need. They'll have people there to help you make the right choice. Even a certified helmet has to fit right to work properly. So when picking your size, make sure it doesn't wobble around or fall off when you nod yes or shake no, even when the straps are undone. Some helmets come with extra pads you can attach, or a nifty crank to help you get dialed in. See? So once you've found the right helmet that fits you, remember the 2v1 rule. With your helmet sitting level on your head, you should have no more than 2 fingers between your eyebrows and the bottom of the helmet. The side strap should form a V shape just below your ears. Adjust the chin strap so only one finger fits under there, like so. When you open your mouth wide like this, the helmet should still feel comfortable. Taking care of your new helmet is easy. Just keep it in a cool, dry place, away from excessive heat or direct sunlight. That's bad for the foamy stuff that protects your brain box. Clean off any grossness with a mild cleaner, like dish soap and warm water. A certified helmet will last 3 to 5 years, but after that, it's time to get a new one. And if you have a crash or are there any visible signs of damage, your helmet is officially toast. There are no accidents, only crashes, but nobody has one on purpose. So protect your brains and wear a helmet when you ride.
This important message is brought to you by CanBike Manitoba, the Manitoba Cycling Association, and the Manitoba government. Have fun. Ride safely.
Welcome back to Psychology Today, and we're here with Mychal Tetteh from Community Cycling Center. And we always have good safety videos. I thought that one was particularly well done and cute, and certainly good information there. Our shows are archived on our website, so if you want to view that video again and get your helmet out and take a look, by all means do so. And the information about the helmet only being good for 3 to 5 years is a good one. I know we lose track of when we bought our helmet and we're not sure how old it is, but do replace them periodically so that you're safe. I wanted to mention, Mychal was talking about the holiday bike drive, and I'm very involved with Portland Wheelman Touring Club, and they help with the wrenching. And people bring their grandchildren, so 10 to 12-year-olds help clean the bikes and work on the bikes, and the grandparents are there. So certainly a broad spectrum of ages can help with the wrenching, and it sounds like you're going to need more throughout the year based on the goals that you're setting for this next year. And so we really appreciate being involved in helping Community Cycling Center with the wrenching and that sort of thing. And too, Portland Wheelman, I think, provides a few scholarships for your summer camps, which we're going to talk about in a little while. So that's one way to contribute to the community and to some of our local children, and we'll get onto that in a moment. So Mychal's been talking about many of the activities and focusing on the holiday bike drive in December, but it's a year-round organization and you're very busy. So let's talk about those summer camps in the summer. Tell us about the Community Cycling Center bike camps.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. And it's a little bit difficult, but I'm coming around to the fact that the Community Cycling Center has the best bicycle summer camp in the state of Oregon. We're reaching over 670 families with our bicycle summer camp. We run that summer camp out of as many as 3 different locations in the Portland metropolitan area. It's for all different levels of bicycle ridership. Certainly focuses on children that are under the age of 14, but from our food cart freewheeling camp that allows children to learn bicycle safety and then use those tools in order to travel around town to their favorite food stops, to some of our more advanced longer distance camps that really challenge young cyclists to grow as athletes in the pursuit of bicycling. It's a really kind of phenomenal thing that we do. So if you see groups of a dozen children riding around Portland looking kind of like little ducklings in a row, all using hand signals, all wearing helmets, all riding responsibly, it is most likely, if not certainly, the Community Cycling Center that's helping to make that happen. And it's something that we've done at least for the last 8 years and continue to grow and improve.
That sounds like too much fun.
I know. I want to go.
I want to go.
We're working on that, and hopefully, if Allison and the rest of the great folks there at Cycle Oregon hear this, there might be an opportunity for us to partner on an adult summer camp here in the not too distant future.
That's really exciting. What part of the summer does it take place in?
Well, I mean, it really runs for about 14 weeks, and our lead staff would know more about it than I, but from the time where we can essentially bet on consistently good weather to the time that we can't. We're out there running as many as 4 camps a day, either out of the Cycling Center Bike Shop or in our partnership with Eric Tonkin at the folks at Selwood Cycle Repair. It's really been one of the real best parts about the summertime bicycling experience in Portland. And again, there isn't any number of different summer camp parents that I run into that have had an opportunity to put their children through our bicycle summer camp.
So who are your campers generally?
Well, they're really from all different walks of life. But one of the things that we struggle with is because of the cost associated with doing the camp exceptionally well, we're not able to get as much funding as we need for scholarships. The cost of the camp is over $290, and it's going to be really important for us to find ways to increase the amount of support that we can have in order to get more kids that would otherwise not have that opportunity out there. While at the same time, we're going to continue to carry the momentum that we have with those families that can afford to send their kids to summer camp, but always keeping in mind that for every child that we're able to get out there on the road that would otherwise not be able to make it happen, the experience is that much more impactful and magical for them.
So what positive results do you see? Do you have some stories to share about some of your campers and the benefits that they've walked away with?
You know, one of the benefits that summer campers get that really extend beyond the bicycle is really just how to be good young human beings. You know, in many cases, they haven't necessarily had to work with a group of individuals that they're not interacting with on a consistent basis as part of a class over the course of a year or in school. And so understanding how to work together to achieve objectives, to get to places safely, how to share tasks related to navigation and wayfinding and leadership roles. Those kind of soft skills, if you will, are really important for children of all ages, and we just happen to be using the bicycle as a tool to achieve some of those results.
So they come away with more self-confidence and maybe learn some things about, well, like safety and maybe about bicycle repair, and maybe learned things about themselves they didn't know they were capable of.
And I hear stories from parents all the time where they tell me that the children come home and they're teaching the parents things, either about safety or about bicycle maintenance and repair. And there's no better kind of testimony than to hear that kind of intergenerational learning is happening. And to get back maybe a little bit to something that you mentioned earlier, that intergenerational component to the work that the Cycling Center does, I think, is one thing that's really positive. And it comes out not just in programs like Bicycle Summer Camp, but also in the volunteer activities, like you mentioned, with Portland Wheelmen, as well as a number of other volunteer opportunities that we have.
Right, and it's an all-inclusive organization.
I really feel like it, and you know, but again, I'm biased. I've been with the organization beyond taking 2 years off for another project. I've been with the organization since 2005. I can't find anything better to do with my time, and I find that the vast majority of our staff, who have been with us some as long as a decade or more, can't find anything better to do either. And I think it's because of bicycling, but it's also because of the great legacy that our founder, Brian Lacey, embarked on when we got that grant from the Cycle Oregon Fund. And Brian Lacey was a former bike gallery mechanic. When he had this vision for an organization that was going to have a really meaningful, impactful change in proximity to community using the bicycle, that kind of vision and that legacy is the one that we carry forward every single day. And
it's certainly, it has achieved those ambitious goals.
Yeah.
And continues to do so.
You know, and we talk to a lot of other nonprofit organizations like the Cycling Center all over the country. And the fascinating thing about this, because I've done a little bit of the research, the vast majority of them got started between 1993 and 1996. The Cycling Center was founded in 1994. But we have a really neat bit of kind of data to look at from all over the country, Minneapolis, New York, California, and the Cycling Center got its inspiration from the Center for Appropriate Transport down in Eugene. And we can see where we're lagging in some regards, where we're leading in others, and there's many ways in which the Community Cycling Center continues to lead nationally.
I'm not surprised to hear that. I would think that they'd be exemplary around the nation in many ways.
Well, and at the same time, it's a struggle every year for us to meet the overwhelming need that's out there in our community. And when we think about the fact that in the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of people around kitchen tables were creating organizations and leading the charge to paint bike lanes, to ensure the kind of infrastructure investments were being made. Now the opportunities to make some of those same kind of changes and some of those same kind of investments aren't there the way that they used to be. And we've seen a relative stagnation in the bicycle mode share in the region. And we've also seen, and there's been a number of different cases where we've highlighted places that aren't safe for people to ride. And those places are often those that have a high proportion of people that are dealing with lower incomes. And also those places are concentrations of cultural diversity as well. And so the kind of place that we all would like to have here in the city of Portland and the metropolitan region is not necessarily the kind of place that everyone has the privilege of living in. That's part of the reason why we're working as hard as we can to grow the amount of safety and the amount of access that's out there in those places that need it the most.
And giving some of those people a voice that might not otherwise know how to have a voice.
That's right.
In a community like this.
Yeah.
And so once you maybe help them, and it's always kind of the sad irony, I think, that the people that maybe would be looking to bicycles as a means of transportation or a means for their children to get to and from school
Right.
really don't have the infrastructure to enable them and their children to use a bicycle,
Well, and
or maybe even walk.
Yeah, and I actually look at what could be considered a sad irony as an immense opportunity, and actually the best place to get a return on investment. If you want to look to the places that have the least built infrastructure, you're also going to find the places where there are the lowest per capita car ownership rates. You're also going to find the highest relative transportation costs for people to get to where they live, work, and play. You're also going to find the highest levels of cultural diversity. We have the greatest levels of childhood obesity and some of the other social determinants of health in some of those same places. And when we open a conversation about active transportation broadly, and when the Cycling Center leads with its strength related to bicycling specifically, it allows us to really have a much more abundant conversation about what's possible and how great investment it is to provide active transportation access and bicycling access to communities that suffer disproportionately from a lack.
Good points. So speaking of kind of in that same vein, the New Columbia Hub and Skills Park. So how does that operate and where is it? And
Great, yeah. Actually, those 2 years that I took away from the Cycling Center, I had the privilege and opportunity to work at a nonprofit grocery store in New Columbia. For folks that don't know, New Columbia is positioned between Lombard and Columbia Boulevard, right off of Woolsey, near Columbia Park Annex. There's a lot of streets in North Portland near St. John's that actually begin with W.
Yes.
Woolsey
Yes.
being one. There's a Willis, and there's more I could go on.
there are.
Right, it's really remarkable. But it's a place that if you don't know what you're looking for, if you haven't been there before, if you don't find it on a map, you may never go. But it's a remarkable place. It's over 50% people under the age of 18, so it's like all kids. There's over 16 different languages spoken, people from many different countries represented, and it is a remarkable place that is full of hope. So hopeful that in the 2011-2012, they launched their own nonprofit grocery store after a for-profit grocery store had went out of business. And over the course of 2 years, with a lot of really great support from volunteers and staff, we were able to get this grocery store that was really just all the hopes and dreams of the community put into one place, into something that was viable from a business standpoint. And it was extremely difficult, but it showed for me the promise of not just a good model, but the kind of passion and dedication that exists within people from all backgrounds. And 2 years on from my departure from that project, it's better than ever and thriving today. I share that just to say then the passion that I have for New Columbia and working in low-income areas runs really deep. And in partnership with Home Forward, in proximity to a park that the Timbers Army put together called Bless Field that allows kids to play soccer. We've put a bicycle skills park in place as well as a bicycle repair hub. And this summer we had over 500 visits to the repair hub, and we were only open a couple of days a week, again, because of funding limitations.
And doesn't the repair shop not have electricity, so it has to be open during daylight hours, and
That's
certainly
right.
in the summer? And Lillian shared with me, again, the idea that a young man learned how to repair bikes and then in turn was teaching other kids how to work on bikes. And some of these kids are coming from families where their parents don't know how to fix the bike.
That's right.
And so they all are working together to
That's
make
right.
this happen. So can you share more of that whole concept with us?
Yeah, it's really about fostering a culture of bicycle care, bicycle safety, and community around bicycling. And I think that's one of the things that's really positive about it. When we talk about the barriers to bicycling, they're numerous, and they're specific to the kind of skin that you're in. But the leading barrier to bicycling across all the kind of demographic or socioeconomic measures is access to a bicycle. So then once you have it, where are you going to put it? Are you going to find safe places to ride with it? Are you going to be able to repair it? Are you going to be in a position where you're going to feel comfortable out there on the road? Do you have everything that you need? Do you know where to go? But this notion of access to a bicycle, the leading barrier after you have access to a bicycle is a flat tire.
Yeah.
Right? And we've all experienced it. Maybe it's the bicycle you haven't seen in the garage for a while for one reason or another, or the flat tire was the last ride that you went on the bicycle, and that was enough to get it retired to the garage temporarily. But if we figured out that, especially on a 20-inch or smaller wheeled bicycle with coaster brakes, just about anyone can work on that, right? And kids are plenty handy, and they're resourceful, and they're willing to invest the time and energy because they're going to end up seeing the direct benefit from it too, which is a good motivating factor for a young person.
And that is kind of what I was sharing earlier, that here's somebody that learned that they can repair a bicycle.
Right.
So how much more confidence must they go into the world with?
Yeah.
And they've learned things about themselves, that they can do this hands-on type mechanical stuff that they probably had no idea they had that ability.
Yeah.
And so they go into the world looking at things totally differently and seeing opportunity instead of barriers.
I think you're absolutely right. And at the Cycling Center, we believe that every child deserves the joy, the freedom, and the health benefits that come from bicycling. And one of the other things that I think it's really important to cover is this notion of discovery. Discovering the talent that you have within, discovering what's out there in your neighborhood as well. Is nothing like getting off the beaten path and getting off on your own little adventure on your bicycle. And I'm sure a vast majority of your viewers can kind of close their eyes and think about a time when they were on an amazing adventure that was safe and fun as a child and on a bicycle. And it's that kind of discovery that can really allow folks to break some of the cycles that occur when we talk about generational poverty in the United States.
I think you're right. I mean, so many older adults, my age, you're right. You talk about when you got your first bike and that feeling of independence, that you could go someplace without mom and dad. I mean, kind of starting to break free from the nest. And a bicycle is often involved because you can get a little bit further from home, even with some restrictions from mom and dad.
Right.
And it's very freeing, and it's just such an integral part, I think, of many of our histories and how we started growing up and becoming independent.
Can I share a story, Ann?
Please do.
Now, this hits a little bit closer to home. I got an opportunity recently to I've only shared this story once, and it was in front of a really kind of tight group of folks, so I'll do my best. I'll keep it concise here. But I have a bakfiets. Are you familiar? It's a bakfiets is, I think is a Dutch term for front-loading cargo bicycle.
Right.
Been able to install the base of a car seat into this bakfiets, and so I take my son Arthur, he's 20 months old now, on rides out to his grandparents' house in Lens, which is on 117th, 118th in southeast Portland. And I've gotten criticized for my route choice from people that know more about route choices. But from where we live in Woodlawn, we make our way up to going on the Greenway there, and then over to Alameda Ridge. Have you ever ridden bikes on Alameda Ridge? Isn't that a wonderful place to ride?
It's beautiful, yes.
And of course we go real early in the morning, and I hadn't realized how important it was to leave at that time of day. But I'll share more about that soon. Alameda Ridge takes us all the way to Rose City Golf Course. We go past Madison High School on Skidmore. We go across Skidmore to the base of Rocky Butte. And we take Rocky Butte over to Halsey. And have you ever ridden over the freeways there on Halsey?
I don't recall having done that.
It's
no.
a pretty serious elevation gain there.
Oh, okay.
And with a heavy bike,
Yeah.
with a heavy baby and a baby seat, it's heavier still. And really enjoy it. And then certainly up through the Gateway Transit Center and then down onto the 205 bike path. But there's this amazing thing that happens real early in the morning as you're riding east on the overpass there. And the sun rises. The sun rises right up over there, and the elevation and the turn of the road is such that it's just this amazing, really inspiring photograph that's just stuck in my mind, and it's just really great. And there was a time when I'd put him in the bike and we'd go on this long ride and he'd fall asleep because I'm waking him up at 5:45 in the morning. He's a growing boy, he's got to sleep. But after about 4 or 5 rides, and we've done the ride, tens and tens of times, he stays awake now. And he's quiet and he's aware, and sometimes he'll point things out, but he really enjoys it. And that was one thing I was actually a little worried of. Is this just Dad trying to translate his bicycling passion onto the children? But the sad part about the story is that when you get to the top of that overpass, you realize that the air quality is so poor because of all of the interstates that are running below, and depending on the quality of the traffic at the time, the point that is the best and the most triumphant for you as a cyclist is also the point where you realize there are forces beyond your control that are having a negative impact on your ability to actually breathe. And use the right-of-way in a way that is inspiring and allows you to attain the health benefits of bicycling. So I just wanted to make sure to share that with you all because that's part of our experience and part of what we do as a family.
Very nice. I like that story. So are there any cultures, is there anybody in the New Columbia area that you have not been able to help get on a bike, or have you been able to reach out to everybody and you feel like everybody that wants to has gotten what they need from?
Well, to the extent of the funding that we have. We were in pursuit of some funding recently. We wanted to have a whole library of bicycles because ownership and access are 2 different things, right?
Sure.
And when you own something, now you have a responsibility to store it, you have a responsibility to maintain it. That's a little different than just having access to something, right? And as we're looking at an increasingly sharing economy, I thought, well, how tough would it be for us to just have a bicycle library and create access? It's like bike share, except at a smaller scale and at a community level that doesn't have some of the same barriers of bike share. And we actually weren't able to get funding for that. And we went to people that we have worked with in the past that ended up having other priorities to fund. And I completely get that, because we're one nonprofit organization in a whole world of nonprofits with growing needs out there in our region, and not everyone is as bought into bicycling being the answer as we all are. And so that is the reality that we face, and it hasn't kept us from asking, and it hasn't kept us from finding success. And in fact, here in the last couple of months, we received a donation from our friends over at Lumberyard, which is really close to the route that I described there,
Yes.
near Madison High School. Will and Mychal and the rest of the crew are doing a phenomenal job out there, and they donated over $10,000 worth of bicycles to the Community Cycling Center.
Whoa.
Some of those bicycles ended up being given away during the holiday bike drive last Sunday, but the vast majority of them are going to be a bicycle library for kids to access, either to use during our summer camps or to use at special summer camps that we're going to provide at the Lumberyard in 2016 and beyond. So it's just really a matter of will, I think, from a funding standpoint, but it is not for lack of ideas or need that the Cycling Center or the organizations that we partner with suffer from.
I think you've enlightened me in that I take a lot of things for granted. Not that I can have any bike I want, but you know, the affordability, and then the storage part of it, and
Right.
all the little things that come with the bicycle.
Right.
And those things are insurmountable for some people.
Yeah.
When survival and feeding your children is kind of tantamount to everything else. So
Right.
so having some other means, maybe sharing,
That's right.
is really one option to help them
Yeah.
not only get exercise and have fun, but maybe open up a little broader scope for workplaces if they can do some multimodal things or that
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to ask Shell to give us a tip of the month. So with Shell joining us, we've talked about a little new venture here. We're going to try to have a bike tip every month, and Shell thought the idea, since it's so dark out there, that we'd start by talking about lights. So Shell, have at it.
Thank you, Anne. Yeah, I mean, winter solstice is coming up, so hopefully the days will eventually get longer. But right now, when it's getting dark at 4:30, sometimes even staying mostly dark all day long with the poor visibility, lighting is going to be so important for keeping you safe on the bike and having drivers be able to see you. Now, there are a few different types of lights out there that I want to focus on. You've got white front lights and rear tail lights that should be red. But more so than that, you also have colored bike lights that you can put on your bike in various places, your wheels, you know, decorating your frame, as well as reflective coatings on your, you know, pedals, having reflectors on your bike on the front, the back, as well as even on your clothes. And all of these should be taken as tools that you can use to keep yourself safe on the road. Now, one of the big things that people don't realize about lights is that they think, oh, you know, it's the law, I have to have a light. But really, it really goes to help you be able to see the road that you're biking on too. A white front light that can be seen up to 500 feet is required by law. But what you can do is it can show you what's coming ahead so that you can know if there are debris in the bike lane, if there is a car coming ahead. All of that is what's going to protect you with having a white front light. But it's also going to protect you from having cars turn into you as well, because they'll be able to see you as an oncoming vehicle rather than just not knowing that you're there. Now that's what you have a tail light for as well. A rear tail light is going to help you stay visible from the rear. A reflector is required by law, not necessarily a light, but a light is also a good added benefit to being able to be seen up to 600 feet back. So that's what the law states, is a front white light up to 500 feet and a rear tail light up to 600 feet, or rear reflector. Now those are required anytime that visibility is low. So let's take today, for example. I don't think I could see more than a few hundred feet in front of me without lights on. So that's why lighting is going to be really important, even in the wintertime. Sunset to sunrise, as well as any time that you cannot see more than a few hundred feet in front of you. So just remember, stay safe out there by keeping well lit. Other things that you can focus on and remember to have during this tough, rainy season is always wear a helmet, making sure you have the 2v1 rule that we talked about in the safety video earlier, and replacing that every 3 to 5 years, as well as just utilizing rain gear to stay dry, as well as fenders and all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Shell. And I think a general guideline is if you were driving a car and you would have your headlights on, you want to make sure that you have your bike lights on as well. And,
Absolutely.
Shell and I have talked about newer riders, and we often don't have the fancy gear for rain riding, and appreciate that sometimes it takes a while to accumulate these things, and step by step you get these things. I know the different places have bike share type things where some of us are getting rid of our old stuff, and maybe you can pick up something for cheap to get you by till you can afford something new on your own, and watch those sales and things like that. So little by little you'll get the stuff you need.
Yeah, and it's all about biking defensively as well. Remembering
Yes.
to always follow the rules of the road, staying on the right-hand side while biking, utilizing that bike lane, utilizing your hand signals as well, which are the same ones that you would use in the car.
Yes.
So, for example, this would be a left-hand turn, right-hand turn,
Right.
stop. All of those are going to be really important to utilize so that you can be safe, so that cars know that you are doing a predictable action, that they can rely on you to follow the rules of the road, which helps keep everyone safer.
Right. And I think a lot of the gear now has a lot of reflectivity down your arm, maybe even lit up gloves, so that when you're doing those signals in the pitch dark, people are going to see them.
Yeah, and by reflective gear, what I mean by that is it's a metallic-y, usually coating on apparel or anything like that, where it becomes lit up when a light is directly applied to it. So you can be able to see it from quite a distance away to help you stay visible. So,
Well, thank you, Shell. That was very helpful. So we're going to try to do some tip of the month every month now, and that was a good idea from Shell. So let's finish up our conversation with Mychal Tetteh from Community Cycling Center. And Mychal, Community Cycling Center is kind of out and about in the community, but yet there are some brick and mortar locations,
Right.
and one of those is the bike shop. And so tell us where that is and why it's unique.
I love talking about the bike shop. That's where I think I had some of the most fun working at the cycling center. All this is fun too, don't get me wrong. But 17th in Alberta, it's got the biggest mural on Alberta Street, this arts district that's become to be really well known internationally and certainly here in the region. And we're open 7 days a week. This time of year, 10 to 6 o'clock. And there are 3 things I like to share about the Cycling Center Bike Shop, and that is that it is approachable, it's affordable, and it's a bunch of fun. We really have a great time there. Our staff want to be there. They're driven by a mission, not just by trying to generate profit. We're not trying to make boat payments for somebody. We're trying to get more kids and adults on bikes, And one of the things that we do there is we try to be the most approachable bike shop around. That means that all of our signage is bilingual. That means that all of our staff are trained to work with people and help them get connected to bicycling however they feel most comfortable. But it also means that we need to be the most affordable. We found that if we ended up not charging market rate for our services or our products, that people would end up taking those products or services or taking advantage of them. Well, if you got a bike for sale and it's not as expensive as it should be, someone's just going to buy it, take it, put it on Craigslist, and that's not what our donors would have wanted. But what we can do is we can provide the Cycling Center mission and a great value everywhere along the kind of price points, regardless of a person's income. We have a low-income commuter discount that we provide to people that are in need. We sell bike parts before we have to recycle them, and I say we have to because we redistribute, repurpose, refurbish, and otherwise reuse everything that we get donated to us, and the worst thing that we'll do is recycle it, and that's thousands of pounds of steel, thousands of pounds of aluminum, thousands of pounds of rubber every year. And on Sunday, before it goes away, we open those sales up for a 50 cents a pound salvage sale. And so that's kind of like the baseline. You can get a whole bike like that, you can just get a wheel, you can just get what you need, but you'll at least have access at that point in the resource stream. Beyond that, then we have bicycles for sale that we sell as is. Now, it would be nice if we were able to have all of the time in the world to fix every single bicycle that came through the door, but that also can create an affordability issue for some, where they may have a little bit of money, but a lot of knowledge and expertise. They can come in and get a bicycle for as little as $35, take the time and energy and use tools that we provide in order to fix that bicycle, make it safe, make it rideable, and make it usable. And that kind of opportunity, again, creates another point where people can get engaged in the purchase of a bicycle. Beyond that, we have fully refurbished bicycles that come with a 30-day return policy and a 3-month warranty. And then we do bicycle repair service. And I haven't checked this with a number of the other shops, and I know you're in the service department there at Bike Gallery, so maybe we can compare notes. But I'm pretty sure that we fix more bikes in that address than just about any other place in town in terms of the number of bikes that come through the door and the number of bikes that we don't turn away, you know, that we're willing to sit there and work with people on. And even if it takes 5 minutes for us to explain to them that it may make more monetary sense for them to pursue an alternative bicycle, you never know who's bringing in what kind of bike and what kind of sentimental value that dusty old bicycle that they brought in has. And there's nothing worse than, you know, really disparaging a bicycle, either out of an unfamiliarity with its relatively older components or for any other reason. And I guess access to all of those old amazing parts is another thing that we excel at. I know there's a number of other places in town where you can get used parts, but I think we have one of the best selections of used parts around, again, because of all the bicycles that get donated.
And not disparaging the potential rider either.
That's right.
They come in all shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah, and the bike shop can be a pretty intimidating place. And
Yes.
so, you know, part of the role that we play in the bicycle industry is to try to get people back on bikes or try to get people who may be intimidated by going into other bike shops on bicycles. And again, that's the role that we played for the last 21 years, and it's one that we're really proud of, and we work real closely with the rest of our retail and distribution partners to really try to grow bicycling in the city of Portland. And we wouldn't do it without the support of Bike Gallery, Cyclone Bicycle Supply, and a host of others that are out there helping to make sure the cycling center can be successful.
Now, I asked Shell this question last week. Like you just said, sometimes going into a bike shop can be intimidating for a newer person.
Right.
It's pretty overwhelming, all the stuff. Where do I go? Who do I talk to?
That's right.
Can you kind of walk us through? We just came in the front door. What are we going to see? What should we do? I want to talk to somebody about getting started in bicycling and maybe getting a bicycle.
Well, the first thing that you're going to be confronted with is another person, you know, because there's nothing like walking into a place and just being confronted with things or being confronted with signs. Hopefully, as soon as you come into the Community Cycling Center, and for folks that maybe haven't visited before or considering visiting, show up in the middle of the day if you can. If you want to go to the bike shop at the same time when you know other people are going to be there, then you can imagine it's going to be crowded. But if you show up on a rainy day in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, then you'll get all kinds of really great individual attention. But beyond being kind of thoughtful about when you decide to patronize the establishment, you're just going to hopefully be confronted by a person, I wouldn't say confronted, welcomed by a person that's there to help you get connected to bicycling. They're not going to make assumptions, and they're not going to try to drive you into making any kind of decision. They are there to help you get connected to bicycling. And that could be information, that could be accessories, that could be a bicycle, that could be a repair. And we really strive to ensure that everyone has a great experience at the Cycling Center Bike Shop.
And I've been in there, and it definitely is a good place to go. And like you say, it's a great neighborhood, and how great to be able to go into a neighborhood and not just make one stop.
That's right.
There's a lot of things to do in that area and enjoy yourself. And it's very bike accessible.
Yeah.
If your bike is running or you have a bike, and you can ride your bike there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that you've demonstrated how involved and passionate you are about cycling in our community. And I wanted to give a quote that you gave a while back.
Uh-oh.
You say, people living with multiple resource constraints are in the best position to benefit from increased access to healthy, active transportation options. So that's certainly a philosophy, and I think you've expressed that in various ways tonight. How have you seen that really implemented in the last couple of years that you've been at Community Cycling Center and proving a successful philosophy?
You know, I think one of the best examples of our work in that way has been in the neighborhood of Cully, and specifically with Hacienda Community Development Corporation. It's an affordable housing campus in Northeast Portland, and when we asked what the leading barrier to bicycle access and ownership was in that community, it ended up being bicycle storage. Again, one of these amenities that if we have a garage we may take for granted, or if we're moving into one of these new high-rise apartment complexes, it may already be built in. And for one reason or another, the housing policies and the priorities for affordable housing haven't prioritized access to some of those relative amenities that we might take for granted. And so by really turning that conversation on its head and providing that support, we've really changed the conversation for really well-meaning affordable housing providers to look again at the plans for their new construction and look at ways in which they can retrofit some of the places that they're already engaging tenants on transportation issues to make bicycle parking a bigger priority. And I actually don't want to get too far off onto bicycle parking, because it's something that we need to have if we're going to be a world-class bicycling city, because it's one of the things that's kind of the silent partner out there in Amsterdam that people don't really talk about. When you look at these kind of sprawling, kind of ridiculous, 3 and 4 decker bicycle parking places, and then you look at what we have at some of our transit centers, and it's maybe just a couple of staples, or it's a couple of never available bicycle parking lockers, you realize that we have a long way to go in order to increase the kind of bicycle parking and storage culture that we're going to need to have if we're going to sustain anything more than a 6% mode share.
Well, thank you so much, Mychal, for joining us. You've really opened our eyes. So we want to thank Mychal Tetteh again from Community Cycling Center, and Shel Summerall, who's co-hosting now on Psychology Today. I think we've had a great show, and I know I've really learned a lot. So thank you for joining us. We lead bicycle rides. Bruce Buffington, our producer, and I lead rides through Portland Wheelman Touring Club, and Shel leads some very novice rides, and she'll be talking about those in a few months when the weather gets a little nicer and you don't have to have lights to ride your bike. And so we'll be sharing with her how maybe a novice rider can get out on the road and learn how to bike with her. Riding with other people really helps you to learn skills. We don't offer the cool bike camps that Mychal talked about, but we can have a quick little few-hour bike camp, and you can learn some skills and build your confidence and learn some new routes around town. So we look forward to having you come out and join us. Please do ride safely and take Shel's advice about the lights to heart. Remember that it is dark and hard to see, and we don't want you to get hurt. So wear your helmet and use those lights. I was looking at the Oregon Bicycle Manual, and certainly you want to look at that and know what the laws are and ride safely. So thank you for joining us. Psychology Today.